A little girl thought she was simply saving two freezing puppies from the deadly winter cold. But by the next morning, police cars had surrounded her house. No one understood why the officers were there or what shocking truth the puppies were hiding. What happened next will leave you shocked. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. It was the morning of her 10th birthday, and the entire mansion seemed brighter than usual. Sunlight poured through tall glass windows, dancing across the decorated hall where balloons gently swayed in the warm air. The wealthy businessman, known for his strict discipline in the boardroom, wore a rare smile today. This day belonged not to meetings or deals, but to his daughter, the one person who could soften his heart with a single look. She rushed down the staircase, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Papa, what's my gift?" she asked, barely able to contain her excitement. He took her hand and led her outside into the chilly morning air. Waiting on the porch were two small wooden crates, each covered with a soft blanket. When he lifted the blankets, her breath caught in her throat. Two tiny German Shepherd puppies blinked up at her, their tails wagging in innocent excitement. She gasped, then squealed with joy, hugging them tightly. In that moment, it felt like the happiest birthday she had ever known. That night, after hours of laughter, cake, and celebration, the mansion slowly faded into silence. The little girl fell asleep hugging both puppies, their warm bodies curled beside her like two tiny guardians. But as the moon rose higher, the restless pups lifted their heads. Their curious noses twitched at the cool night breeze drifting through a small gap near the door, one gentle push. Then another, and the door creaked open just enough for them to slip outside. Excited by the world beyond the porch, they wandered into the shadows, unaware of how cold the night truly was. Step by step, the darkness swallowed them as they drifted farther from home and closer to danger. The next morning, the mansion awoke to a sound no one expected, a terrified scream. The little girl burst out of her bedroom, tears streaming down her face. "Papa, my puppies! They're gone." Her small voice echoed through the hallways, shaking the quiet morning awake. Servants rushed toward her, trying to calm her trembling hands, but she pulled away and ran from room to room, calling their names with growing desperation. Her breakfast lay untouched on the table. She refused water, refused comfort. Nothing mattered except the two warm little lives missing from her arms. The businessman, normally composed and calculating, felt panic rise in his chest. He ordered everyone to search the mansion grounds immediately. Gates were opened, footsteps scattered across the property, and every corner was checked, but the truth settled in moments later. The puppies weren't just lost inside, they were nowhere to be found, not far from the mansion. Deep near the tree line stood a small wooden cabin, nothing fancy, just a humble home where a poor family lived quietly away from the world. That morning, their 10-year-old daughter stepped outside, rubbing her eyes as the icy wind brushed against her cheeks. She bent down to gather firewood. And then she froze. Two tiny shapes lay curled beside the cabin door. At first, she thought they were just shadows until one of them whimpered. Her heart clenched. Two German Shepherd puppies, shivering violently, their fur stiff with frost, their little noses buried in one another for warmth. Without hesitation, she scooped them into her arms. "Mom! Dad! Look!" she cried, rushing inside. They wrapped the trembling pups in old blankets, bringing them close to the fire. As the warmth returned, the puppies lifted their weak heads and nuzzled gently into the girl's hands, trusting her completely. Back at the mansion, hope was fading with every passing minute. The businessman paced across the living room, phone in hand, his face tight with worry. He had searched the gardens, the nearby roads, even the forest edge, but there was no sign of the puppies. His daughter sat silently on the staircase, her eyes red from crying, her small hands clutching the empty collars she had found near her room. Finally, he couldn't wait any longer. He called the police and filed an official missing dogs report, his voice trembling as he described their age, color, and markings. Then, in desperation, He added something that made the officers stop and look at him. "Whoever finds my daughter's puppies will receive a $10,000 reward within minutes." The news spread across town like wildfire. While the town buzzed with talk of the reward, the police gathered around their patrol cars, studying a blinking signal on a small handheld device. Unknown to most people, the businessman had secretly installed GPS trackers inside the puppy's collars, an extra layer of security for his daughter's precious gift. And now, after hours of silence, the trackers had finally activated. A faint signal pulsed from deep near the forest. The officers exchanged sharp glances. The location wasn't a street or a house number on record. It was a small, isolated cabin toward the edge of the woods. Without wasting a second, units were dispatched. Engines roared to life. The forest trail filled with flashing lights as the police moved in, tightening their circle around the cabin where the puppies were hidden. The morning air around the small cabin suddenly shifted. The poor girl, still feeding the now warming puppies by the fire, heard the distant crunch of tires on frozen ground. Before she could react, a sharp knock thundered against the wooden door. She jumped, clutching the puppies close. Her parents exchanged worried glances. Who could that be so early? Her father murmured. The door swung open to reveal officers in uniform, their badges glinting under the cold sunlight. "We're looking for 2 missing German Shepherd puppies," one of them announced firmly. The girl's eyes widened in fear, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she thought they might take the puppies away. When an officer scanned the collars and the GPS tracker beeped, everything became clear. "These belong to a wealthy family," the officer said quietly. As they gently lifted the puppies, the little girl broke into tears. And heartbreakingly, the puppies cried too, refusing to leave her arms. When the puppies were returned to the mansion, everyone expected relief, maybe even celebration. But the moment they entered the warm, luxurious home, something felt wrong. The little girl opened her arms, waiting for them to run to her like they always did. But they didn't. Instead, the puppies whimpered softly, their eyes drifting back toward the direction of the forest. Throughout the day, servants brought bowls of warm milk, soft food, and their favorite treats. But the puppies wouldn't touch anything. They paced restlessly near the door, crying in short, broken sounds as if calling for someone far away. The businessman watched with growing concern, while his daughter knelt beside them, gently stroking their fur. "They miss her," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They miss the girl who saved them." And for the first time, she realized love couldn't be bought, even with the finest gifts. The next morning, the little girl couldn't bear watching the puppies suffer anymore. Their once bright eyes looked dull, their tiny bodies weak from refusing food. She held them close, feeling their soft whimpers vibrate against her chest. "Papa, I think they're dying," she whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. The businessman knelt beside her, sighing heavily. "They're not sick," he said gently. "They're heartbroken." And she knew exactly what she had to do. With trembling hands, she lifted the puppies into the car. When they arrived at the poor girl's cabin, something magical happened. The moment the puppies saw her, their tails wagged wildly, and they sprinted into her arms. They began eating again within minutes. As if life had returned to them, the rich girl watched silently, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. As the puppies curled happily beside the poor girl, the businessman and his daughter stood quietly at the doorway. The rich girl wiped a tear, but a gentle smile lifted her face. She had given away her greatest birthday gift, and yet, somehow, she felt lighter. Seeing her kindness, the businessman placed a hand on her shoulder. "Real love means doing what's right," he whispered proudly. From that day on, the two girls became unexpected friends, connected by 2 little lives who had found the home their hearts chose. And the puppies, they finally lived where they were truly happiest,